that we take whatever the definition is of abuse and we dilute it down so that it applies to our lives. Rob, I've missed you.
Thanks,
I
Dave.
just I just got back from a trip to California to go see my in-laws.
How was that?
Well, I like my in-laws a lot. But every year our family gets together. We go back every year to San Diego, and it's a highly competitive but very warm family. However, we are politically divided. Okay, so we don't talk about politics.
Okay.
And I don't like to get involved in any kind of I don't like friction,
Of course.
right?
No, you hate that.
So my typical stance is to I always go like, we have a choice. We can either talk about things we care about, or we can just talk about the different ways in which you can cut a watermelon. Those seem to be like in my mind, those are the two options. So, so usually I am the one that I poke the bear a little bit because I like the interpersonal friction.
Right.
However, with my family over the last couple of years, I've learned, or with my wife's family, I've learned that this is not a bear you want to poke because people are so emotionally involved in their political ideology, both sides of the aisle.
Yeah. So let me ask: is it varied within the family, or are they all kind of squarely in one bucket?
It's varied.
Okay.
It's varied. And the lion's share is on. I'm not going to tell you which side,
Right.
but the lion's share is on one side and very invested in their side.
Okay.
So I've learned we don't talk about it. Well, anyway, so I sit down at dinner one night and my two brother-in-laws are talking about something that is politically adjacent, something I thought was really boring. And I was like halfway checked out. And my wife, Allison, is next to me, also finding the conversation kind of boring, halfway checked out. So she just goes, you know what? It's whatever, 9 o'clock. I'm going to bed. So she leaves me there solo. We're by the pool eating. And all of a sudden, my sister in law saddles up next to me and makes a very provocative comment to me. How could you do X, Y, or Z? That person is a horrific person. Essentially, was how could you have ever, this political side is the worst it's
Right.
ever been.
Right.
And I said, well, maybe I disagree with that perspective. And I mean, it was as though I was going into battle. At one time, so I have her yelling at me, then I have another person across the table, her husband, also yelling at me. My sister-in-law turns to my brother-in-law and screams, "You're not in this, I'm in this." And I ended up saying, "Hey, but I have to be able to talk, right? Otherwise, we're not having a debate if I just sit here and you machine gun comments at me, right? We have to have a conversation."
Look, let me interrupt.
Okay.
Have they met you before? Like, do they know that you're part of the reason you're doing this is just to like poke the bear and piss people off?
So this is what I'd like to say, Rob, is I did not poke the bear this time. They poked the bear.
Okay.
I am just not going to acquiesce
Yeah.
to the larger group. I did not start it.
Okay.
I was sitting there just minding my P's and Q's, honestly bored by the conversation. And then they started it with me. And I
Okay.
just didn't. And I wasn't provocative back. At one point I said, "Hey, if we step out of this conversation and just get meta, if we just rise above ourselves, do you realize that I haven't said anything provocative and I haven't raised my voice one time?
You know,
Meanwhile, you are all bellowing at me."
oh, that's almost worse. You did
What
poke the bear. That is worse because now you're trying to signal that you have the calm, composed high ground here with all of the other, emotional, people whipped up in a frenzy. If I was your family in that situation, oh, I would be riled up if you did that to me.
you'd be riled. What? I mean, I agree. I would like I do hope that they clock that one person can effectively regulate their emotions and the other ones cannot. There was a horde of hyenas
Uh-huh.
screaming and one person steady Eddie,
Right. Yeah, that would
okay?
piss me off if I was debating you and you said, "Can you just acknowledge that there's one of us, me, who is maintaining his composure?" No. No. Go fuck yourself. No. I'm all in now.
Wait, but wouldn't you stop and go like, "Hey, you know what? I guess that is the reality, isn't it?"
No. Not if I'm having a an emotionally heightened political conversation. I get what you're trying to do, and it's probably the right thing to do, but yeah, I'm so far I'm siding with your family, but go ahead.
Well, they did not just, they were not impressed with me. They were not impressed with me or my commentary, even though I think if we reflected back, it would be very clear that somebody was thoughtful and linear and other people not so. That's my perspective.
Mhm.
Okay.
You brought logic to an emotion party.
Yes. Yeah, but logic was okay. But just for the record, logic was pulled into the emotion party. I wasn't knocking on the door. I was on the street, yanked into the emotion party, and
Alright.
everybody goes, "Pfft, Logic's a real asshole." Anyway, after this, I go to my bedroom with Allison, and she goes, "How's dinner?" And I said, "I I was just abused by your entire family. I am now a victim of abuse." Okay? And I really feel I felt strongly that I had been abused.
Wow.
Now, this is the segue. This is our segue to the concept of today. Well, first of all, can you guess what the concept of today is based on my
Uh, I could guess, especially knowing you, that, at times, you are prone to hyperbole,
well, that's hurtful, Rob.
and well, the truth hurts, as Lizzo says. I imagine what we're gonna talk about today is the word abuse and how
Ye-
you used it here.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. What we're going to talk about is a concept called concept creep.
Okay.
So concept creep, I think I didn't have I didn't know the term concept creep until I was like trying to figure out what this was.
Right.
But I have been yelling on the internet and to family and friends about pop psychology terms being misused for like I feel like the last decade it has been like run rampant where people are using terms they don't totally understand, they're using them incorrectly,
Okay.
and it fits this concept called concept creep.
Okay.
So concept creep originally was coined by a guy named Nick Haslam back in 2016.
Okay.
And I'm hoping I pronounced that name correctly. But what he was talking about is not like when I think about it, I think about like, okay, well, you keep on saying gaslight or you keep on calling people a narcissist, and that's not an
Mm,
accurate use of the word.
mhm.
But what he was originally concerned with, and I think is actually more significant, is this idea that we take negative terms, so terms like abuse and or trauma,
Mm,
and
mhm.
we expand them both he says expand them vertically and horizontally. So
Okay.
vertical expansion would be that we take whatever the definition is of abuse and we dilute it down so that it applies to our lives.
Okay.
So when we think about when if I said to you, what do you think verbal abuse is, right? You would probably, I would imagine you would come up with, a child who's told to F off by their father.
Right.
That would fit that definition.
Correct.
But in an effort to make my family look bad to my wife, I let her know that I had also been abused at dinner.
Okay. Yeah,
That's
I
a
get it.
that's a vertical
Okay.
concept creep.
That helps. I get that.
And then there is horizontal concept creep, where we essentially expand the definition to things that are sort of not even in the line. They're not even vertically integrated
Okay.
anymore. It's to other tangential stuff that we want to fit the definition.
Okay. Do you have an example? I'm trying to come up with what that looks like.
So if it would be the acuity would be as bad, but we're just describing something different. So like for example, the use of the word gaslight. The true definition of gaslight is when somebody does something bad, you catch them in doing that thing that is bad. And instead of acknowledging that it's been done, they turn around and say, "No, you're crazy for thinking
Right.
that I did that," right? They're
Right.
gonna gaslight you and think that you're
Mhm.
nuts because you've identified the thing that actually happened. That's
Mhm.
gaslighting.
Mhm.
Comes from a movie, I think 1944. Like, that's the
Yeah.
definition.
Yep.
But we now use gaslight for every kind anytime anybody is ever perceived to lie, we say, "You're gaslighting me right now."
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
a horizontal.
That's it. All right.
Right? So I don't I can't I'm struggling to find one that fits with abuse, but the idea is that you sort of spread the definition out so it covers whatever it is that you're trying to capture.
So with trauma, people can experience trauma themselves, or they can be traumatized by, like, from experience they have, or they're traumatized by hearing the experiences of other people. That would be a horizontal, like, definition of that, right? Is it's all right, it's not my own experience, but now I'm also feeling traumatized by the experiences of other people, relaying those experiences back to me.
Okay, so I don't think so.
Okay.
So if you were to look at the definition of like post-traumatic stress disorder, you can get post-traumatic stress disorder as a consequence of vicarious trauma,
Okay.
which is what you're describing. So if you're in war and someone goes on a mission and comes back and they lost someone that
Okay.
they witnessed a death, and you hear about that loss that the other person experienced, you can get PTSD.
Okay.
But the symptoms of PTSD to get
Right.
the diagnosis should be the same. So a vertical concept creep would be that, well, I'm not really getting flashbacks and I'm not really struggling with symptoms of anxiety, but I saw a really shitty thing. So I've been traumatized.
Right.
And it's like, but you don't meet the diagnostic criteria for
Right.
being traumatized,
Right. Right. Okay.
which is, I think, like to me, and that's what I wanted to talk to you about today. Is I think it's an interesting thing that you very rarely, that I'm aware of, have concept creep for positive things. You instead have
Huh.
concept creep for negative things
Okay.
that make you a victim and require you to be taken care of. In my mind, require you to be taken care of.
Right.
Well, that's my theory, I guess. Maybe I'm saying that like I know it, and I don't know it, but that's my like assessment of it.
But yeah, I think, as I think of what we're talking about here and the terms, you know, yeah, I think that PTSD, I think narcissist, I think triggered, I think, those types of words. Burnout even could be one, like,
Yeah.
in the work that we do, like, oh, I'm burned out. Well, you're just kind of tired, or you had a busy
Yes.
week or so. Doesn't mean you're burned out.
Yep.
Um, yeah,
Yep.
but
I
I'm trying
remember.
to
I
think of
remember.
a positive example of
The
that.
one positive I can think of is, just as a parent, I think that 98% of my friends' kids are gifted and talented. They're all gifted and talented. They're all the new ones. I always hear that they're all twice exceptional. Everybody's twice exceptional.
I've never heard of that term.
You have never heard. This is the funniest thing for me is the term twice exceptional, as I understand it, means that you are exceptional in one way, like positive, like you're really good at math. But also, you have another thing that's exceptional, like you are exceptionally distractible. So it's usually like on one side you're great, and the other side you got a thing that you got to work on, and that's twice exceptional. But I
Okay.
always hear parents that go like, "Oh, my kid's great at reading and at math, twice exceptional." And in my circle, I hear that term constantly.
Huh. Okay. Well, learn something new. I've never heard of that term.
Well,
Twice
maybe it's
exceptional.
just I have a crazy group of friends
Yeah, I'm thinking that's at least a hypothesis for you to collect more data
to
on.
consider.
Yeah.
Do you not hear that every kid that you interact with is gifted and talented?
No.
Oh my gosh. All of my kids, everybody I know, their kids are gifted and talented, except for my kids, by the way. They're
But I think that's probably just your parenting style, right? You're always gonna like when we talked about parenting a couple episodes ago, like you're gonna keep your kids down a couple pegs. Like, all right, like
Rein it in.
rein it in here a little bit, and that resonates with me too. It's like, all right, you're getting a little bit too full of yourself, so I'm gonna allow you to rein yourself in right now.
Yeah, we're gonna make sure that you're grounded.
Uh-huh. All right.
Yeah,
So but I think you're right. I like that. Like being gifted. Well, just
yeah.
because you got a an A minus on a paper doesn't mean that you're gifted in math.
Mhm,
Okay.
mhm.
Okay, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
maybe you get them saying maybe genius, I hear, but the lion's share of them, I guess it's interesting because it's not like I hear you always hear concept creep. Here's what I'm gonna amend my hypothesis.
Okay.
You always hear concept creep when when it puts somebody in a better position in their mind. So people will often say, "My ex is a narcissist,"
Yeah.
all the time,
Mhm.
right? Or, "Hey, the reason why I'm not good interpersonally is because I have autism. I just got diagnosed with autism and I am autistic."
Okay.
Or, I need to be taken care of and I was depressed all weekend." Right? Because you want to be supported or because you are super capable, we sort of expand the
Yeah.
concept so that it fits
Okay.
you.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, you're the hero in your own story.
Yeah, yeah, that's a better way yes.
And so in these situations, we can use these words that can be very powerful in a way that reinforces us as being the hero in the story.
Yeah.
I could
Yes.
say my ex was a bad fit with me. My ex, I didn't, like her at the end. Um, that we grew apart. But if I really want to add some sort of emotion to the way I tell the story,
Mhm.
then my ex was a narcissist.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I think you're right. We're talking about this though, and it makes me think this isn't new. This concept of concept creep. I mean, the article you mentioned is what 8 or so years old.
Yeah.
But I mean, in language, this has probably happened forever. Like, like depressed. I mean, depressed is, people would describe themselves as being depressed 20, 30 years ago, maybe even
Mhm.
longer. They weren't actually depressed.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't fit a clinical definition of being
Right.
depressed or suffering from a major depressive disorder. But people would describe themselves as being
Yeah.
depressed.
Yeah, that's true. I remember I used to be a therapist at, like, in a college counseling center, and the number of times I had to have the conversation with people that they'd have a breakup and their world would implode, and they would say, "I'm totally depressed." And I would be like, "You're not depressed, you're sad.
Yeah.
There's a big difference between being
Uh-huh.
depressed and being sad.
Uh-huh.
You're just sad."
So then what accounts for, because I agree with you. I think this is not new. And I feel the same way. I feel like the use of these words sometimes it gets under my skin, and I think it gets under my skin in part because part of it I just need to get over because people use words in different ways and definitions change over time. And that part is, well, you're not using the term correctly.
Mhm.
But the other part I worry about is if people actually start to believe this. Like if they actually believe that they're traumatized by something that is maybe objectively, you know, an uncomfortable experience, but is not
Mhm.
necessarily a traumatizing experience, then what happens to that person's resilience if they're reinforced when speaking with others that this was a traumatic experience versus an uncomfortable experience or some other sort of emotional experience?
Yeah, because, for the most part, they're kind of saying, "Take care of me.
Yeah.
I was abused," or I was traumatized," or "I'm I'm autistic." It's, give me support, listen to me differently, take care of me a little bit, right? It's a little bit of a, um, I need something from you. The world needs to support me in some way because of this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I was trying to think. It's funny when you're talking about it. I was thinking, okay, so who cares? Who? What if you say that you're depressed, you're not
Yeah.
really depressed. Is it really that big of a deal? But it drives me freaking nuts.
Right. It does drive me
It
nuts too.
and it's like, what and I'm but then I'm have to think about, like, am I just an asshole who's, you know, cares too much about semantics, or does it really have a damaging effect on the individual?
Hmm. I would say damaging might be a strong word, but what I was saying before could be the issue is, do you actually are you just using these terms flippantly, or do you actually believe that you're traumatized?
Mhm,
I think that's one thing. Maybe related to that is, like just overall pathologizing more run of the mill experiences.
mhm,
Is like, well, not everything is a pathology. That's something you and I have joked it before, right? Especially as psychologists, we can sometimes go straight when we observe something, we go straight to a pathology. And it's like, well, no, this person doesn't have X disorder. They're having a bad day, or they have maybe a characteristic or two, but they don't, demonstrate or exhibit all these, five or six of these behaviors that would indicate that they have a disorder. So I think that's one of the things I think about too. Is how do you start to differentiate what is truly a pathological issue or diagnosable issue versus what is not when these
mhm.
words are used so frequently.
Do you think it also do you think it because part of it is, okay, so what's the impact on the person using the term? But also, what's the and maybe this is what you're getting to, but what's the impact on people for whom the term actually fits? If if I
Mm,
am
yeah,
struggling with PTSD and somebody who is not experiencing the symptoms of PTSD is walking around saying, "I have PTSD,"
yeah,
how does it make me feel to have the actual like, that's a very invalidating, I would imagine, a very invalidating experience
yeah.
for
I
other
was
people.
not thinking about that, but you're right. It is. It's almost like reducing,
Yeah, minimizes.
minimizing. That's a better word. Yeah,
Yeah.
minimizing what is an actual, daily issue for this individual
Mhm. Mhm.
when they hear these terms. Yeah, I think you're right. That is another downside. Something else that comes to mind for me, another potential downside is, in your example that you used to start our conversation today, and you were, it sounds like tongue in cheek, describing your experience with your family as abuse.
Yes.
I can imagine, though, that, if we're in a conversation that gets heated where we disagree with each other, and I start throwing around terms like you're being a narcissist
Yes.
or you're being abusive, something like that. Well, that that is going to cause me to do one of two things. I'm either going to become enraged
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
say, all right, you want to, all right, fine. You want me to do that? Like I'm happy to oblige. Let me be a dick right now.
You think I'm a narcissist? Let me show you what a
Right.
narcissist looks like.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
Or, okay, I'm out.
Yeah.
Like I'm not gonna engage this anymore.
Mhm.
So I think that's another downside when I hear some of these terms flying around that I wonder about. I guess I've never been in that situation before, but
Right, but that's another part of it, what you're saying, though, is that, yes, if you use these terms, like, people are using them to serve themselves, I think. Part of it is, "Take care of me because I got this thing," but you're also using it as sort of as like a trump card to shut down other people.
yeah.
Right? If you call somebody a narcissist, you've escalated. You're not just saying that they're selfish or that they're an asshole. You are pathologizing them, and you got a problem that you're not going to change. I mean, you're ramping up the severity to a place that prevents real conversation.
You know what I wonder is, assuming this continues to be the case, we will just need new words
Yeah.
to mean. So eh, I don't I don't foresee, people using the terms that we're talking about today, like narcissist, less frequently, or gaslighting less frequently. Instead, what I think is more likely to happen is, people in the mental health space will just start identifying and creating new words, or some derivation of the word to describe the actual
Yeah.
pathology
Yeah.
that they're trying to identify. I bet
Yeah.
that's what happens.
Mhm. Yeah, like yeah, right. So it's like you're a you're a diagnosable narcissist, or like
Right.
some kind of way to
Yeah.
sort of say like, hey, this is the real deal, not that
Right.
pop psych stuff.
And if you think about it, that's just language. I'm trying to think of a word that we use now, and it means something very it originally meant something very different. Um, but if I think about that way, it's like, yeah, that's just the evolution of language to
Hmm.
some extent.
Hmm.
I think part of the reason it bothers me more, because again, I agree with you here, and part of it is the social media soapbox that I'll get on. I think it's just like you get these words, and maybe before the ramp was very gradual, like people starting to use the word depressed. It was like I don't know, a 10 or 15-year ramp up.
Yeah,
But I feel like gaslighting was like, I don't know, a year. Like
yeah,
I didn't hear it at all, and then
hmm,
I heard it all the time.
hmm,
Everyone's gaslighting me,
yeah,
and so it just I feel flooded by the change in the definitions, and it's a bit disorienting at times, especially for people who do what we do. Like, what? Wait, what are we
yeah. What do you,
talking
that's a
about?
yeah, that's a significant word. What are you doing? You're just
Yeah,
using it like it's nothing. Yeah.
yeah.
So I,
Um,
I I thought today would be fun to can we talk about some of the ones that we hate the most,
yeah,
well, of the terms that bother us the most.
yeah.
I'd like to start with triggered.
Oh, yeah. That's triggering for me to talk about this. Yes,
I'm
let's do
triggered
it.
already. So let me just complain for a second about triggered, and then you can rein me in. Okay.
I don't think I'll be the person to rein you in here, but let's see.
Okay. The term triggered suggests that you're shooting a gun, that there's an event that happened, like pulling the trigger. And once the trigger is pulled, there is no way the combustion has happened, and there is no way to stop the bullet from coming out of the gun.
Mhm.
That's what it comes from. So if you are moving through your life and something happens, and because of your background, you are unable to regulate your emotions in a reasonable way, then it's fair to say that you were triggered.
Yep,
But what you are saying is you are totally and utterly out of control. You are no longer able to manage your own emotions because you've been triggered.
yep,
When somebody is triggered in a clinical setting, it's a very distressing experience. It's a scary experience. They're totally they need help regulating because it's such a no one likes to have been triggered. It's awful.
yeah,
Versus now I feel like people are triggered they're saying they're triggered left and right, and I
yep,
would like to it drives me absolutely nuts.
yes. Again, they're diluting the meaning, and as a
Yes.
result, it becomes less powerful.
Hmm.
I,
Yeah.
I agree with you there. Same. I think being triggered, it really could just mean that I don't like what I'm hearing, or I disagree with what's happening right now, which are mellower terms to use and probably more appropriate in a lot of instances
Hmm.
than what
Hmm.
people are using it for.
Yeah.
One for me is the term bullying.
Oh, say more. You don't like the term bullying?
I No, I like the term bullying.
Sounds like what a bully would say.
That's right.
Sorry.
Um, but I think for me, the term bullying is used flippantly to describe an experience that a person will have interacting with someone else who's maybe a bit more assertive or aggressive, especially if they are more reserved. And so I will hear people talk about feeling bullied
Hmm.
when they feel not listened to, when they feel talked over, when
Yeah.
they feel like they are in a situation where someone has, is trying to just overpower them in one way or another. They feel bullied.
Hmm.
And I think the reason this is triggering for me,
Hmm.
um, is, there are certainly kids out there. I was, I would say, bullied as a kid. I think I've shared this story on this show before, but I was a quiet, what do we call it in the 90s? A husky, quiet kid. And, I had the husky pants and everything like that too. But when I was in fourth grade, I think it was fourth grade, maybe fifth grade, someone made a comic book about me called Lardo Man, and I was the main character. and all these boys were in the playground, like hanging out. So I walk over to the playground to see what's going on. And they're like, "Oh, here, come here." And I look and they're like, "Here, it's yours." And it was a comic book about me. I feel like that's a bullying experience.
That is such a horrific story. You've told I mean, I know the story. You've told me to but it's such a horrific story.
Right.
That is definitely bullying, and it make can I just complain for a second?
Yes.
I would like to throttle all of those kids. What are those kids doing now? Do you hunt them
I
down?
don't know. I did talk to one of them afterwards, um, and because he and I ended up going to the same high school, and I think like a lot of kids in those situations, there was a lot of stuff going on, outside of school, back at home that it wasn't the most stable or supportive environment. So you act out in different ways.
Did you so you asked him about it, or you just know that he had trouble at home, or did you have a conversation about, like
Oh, I think both. So I asked him about it later on. My parents got involved because I went home that day early and I did not go to school the next day. And so my parents got involved to talk to his parents. And so it was like the guy who did it, the guy who was like the uh the main illustrator of this particular comic book.
oh,
So they told me some things too. But yeah,
I would become unhinged at my child if they did that. I don't know how I'm not sure.
uh,
I would not be good pa I would not be a good parent. I would be
no,
oh my god.
same. Same. And so you were saying before, like what is it like when someone who has an actual pathological issue or mental health issue to hear those things in a slightly different way? That's kind of my orientation to the word bullying. It's like, like I remember what that was like and trying to manage through that for, especially as a 9-year-old kid
Yeah.
for a year or two afterwards. That was bullying because it was a long-term impact on me as a kid and even, after that, as opposed to an uncomfortable situation that in an hour or in a day dissipates.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there's a yeah, in your ca I mean, there is a deliberate effort to hurt you,
Yeah,
right? Someone who talks over their coworker at work is not
bullying.
intentionally
Yeah,
trying to hurt somebody.
right. Necessarily. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah.
that's the biggest one for me. I think trauma, we've already talked a little bit about that. I think that's similar for me is it wasn't traumatic necessarily. It was uncomfortable or difficult.
So it's an interesting thing. So with trauma, I think it's like from, so this is my sort of hierarchy, and I'm not saying it's right. But in my mind, when people say, um, I'm a little bit OCD or I've got some OCD, I always think, no, you don't.
Yeah.
This is incredible concept creep. You're just organized or you're a little anal retentive, but you don't have
Uh-huh.
OCD.
Mhm.
And it doesn't bother me so much, or I'm less conflicted about it. I am more conflicted when it comes to trauma and abuse because I feel like both in coaching and when I used to be a therapist, I would oftentimes help people recognize that they were traumatized or help people recognize that
Yeah.
they were abused. Like, I think there's a value in, for some people, they're using these terms willy nilly and they
Right.
want the support. But
Right.
for other people, they move through the world and they've had multiple, I mean, complex traumas that they don't register as
Mhm.
significant traumas. And I feel like I'm like, hey, that right, just because it didn't happen to you doesn't mean that you wouldn't be traumatized. Just because, you know what I mean? Like I am sometimes wanting people to understand that it can apply to them.
Right. Right.
Yeah, so
And
those
that
2 are harder for me.
yeah, that makes sense.
I don't know why I'm like less friendly when it comes to like anxiety related stuff. I'm not as I'm maybe it's my own issue, but I'm less likely to show the empathy tied to it.
Is it
I'm just
like a
like, no, you
personal
don't have
thing?
OCD.
Like, all right, well, like you've experienced it before, you've worked with people who actually have it, and so that's why?
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah. maybe. I mean, it's interesting because OCD's anxiety related, so is
Yep.
PTSD,
Right.
but I it's something about the I think it can be curative to recognize. I think I know why. Now I'm just working through it. When I think about abuse or trauma, these are things that have happened to you that are impacting you today. And I'm wanting people to, when they craft their narrative of what they're like, when they make meaning from the experiences that they've had, I want them to be able to accurately sort of go like, oh, this thing affected me in this way. And so, and I think important to draw the link there. Whereas OCD, I also want to draw the link, but oftentimes I'm like, but it doesn't really fit for you. It's not helping you process through something.
Yeah.
It typically.
Typically, yeah. I'm curious to get your thoughts on like your sense of the pace with which these types of terms have experienced concept creep. Because again, to me, it feels like this has happened more frequently as of late
Mhm.
than it has in the past, realizing that it's always happened. Is that your sense of it too? Like we were talking about gaslighting before, at least I was. Like I feel like it happened overnight and then it just stayed. Is that your
Yeah.
experience too? Okay.
Yeah. You know, the one that I feel like I hear all the time is psychopath. Everybody's a psychopath. And I think that
But that's
that's
not
saying that they're
new.
all antisocial. And I think they're not. Like
Right.
the rates that we would diagnose it versus what we hear about in pop culture are way off.
Oh, for sure.
You have that book, Psychopath Next Door. I think there's like the perception that every executive is a
Yeah.
psychopath.
Or
And like
narcissist.
I think the rate has probably sped up because people are profiting off of them also.
Right. Yeah. You're gonna catch people's attention a lot more when you
Yeah.
say the narcissistic leader versus the leader who from time to time is less self-aware and has some opportunity to, leave some room for other people to talk. That's a less sketchy title.
Yeah. Right. If we wrote a if we wrote a book called, you know, My Boss the Gaslighter, that'd probably sell off the off the shelves.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. How to deal with my gaslighting boss.
Yeah.
You can that may
I
make be profitable.
I wonder if part of the reason this is more prevalent now is what I've experienced over the past 10 years, at least here in the US, is a culture of wanting to support others, to identify issues in the culture, to identify injustice, or to identify whatever is happening, call it out, and then do something about it.
Mhm.
Does that make
Yes.
sense?
It makes it yes, and I feel also that that makes me triggered.
Yeah, like
That
there's a sensitivity to feeling as if other people are harmed.
well, but it make wait, I didn't hear exactly what you said there. Say that again, say that last part again.
There is a heightened awareness around harm
Yeah, and
and
it bothered
and
but
and perceptions of feeling harmed or harming others.
and is it bad that that bothers me?
Well, why? Because it
I
kind of
think
bothers me too, but let's see if it's the same reasons. Go ahead.
because I think that we need to be resilient, and if we walk around constantly trying to protect people from feeling anything negative, we remove all resiliency,
Yep.
and even worse than that, we then start to blame people that haven't done anything wrong.
Yep. I agree. I think I have not read the book, but I've heard him speak about it. Jonathan Haidt, this is like a 10-year-old book. Was it The Coddling of the American Mind?
I've
Have
not
you read
read
that
it,
book?
but
Okay.
yeah.
But I've heard him talk about it, and it's resilience
Mhm,
is part of what he identifies as the the biggest issue there is if you're constantly fighting to address harm, well, there are times when having some of those experiences can be, um, can be helpful, maybe not in the moment, but over time.
mhm.
And not everything that happens that is uncomfortable or a hurdle is going to cause lasting harm.
I agree so much, and you want if I'm gonna derail this just to get you just to fire you up about this. I did a video about like 2 years ago on grit, Angela Duckworth's
Yep.
concept of grit, where she showed the data is overwhelming that the characteristic that is most predictive of success in kids and adults is that they are gritty, that they can
Yep.
overcome challenges, that they not only do you survive the challenge, but you get better as a consequence of having gone through the challenge. And when she wrote that book and gave her famous TED talk, educators around the world were like, this is fantastic. We want to use it. So I was doing a video on grit and I was interviewing some high school teachers. They are not using grit. And the term grit in high school, at least in Colorado, is very questionable because they struggle with knowing, well, what's the line? How do you make somebody gritty, and what is the do you end up removing the resources from the kids that need the resources because you're trying to make them grittier?
Mm,
So, for example, the classic example would be if a child has ADHD,
right.
there are certain support systems that you can give them to help them test better. Somebody who is in favor of building grit would say they have to learn to be in this classroom where they're going to be distracted. They have to learn to cope. Somebody who is against it would say this is a disability, this is a learning disability, and we should therefore put them in a quieter classroom. And I think the answer is you can do both, but it's wild to me
Yes, that's the answer. Is it's
that
not a
we
yes
have
or
to
no.
remove the whole concept of grit.
Yeah. I agree. I think that that's part of it too because the outcome of grit. Well, first of all, you know, no one thing is going to predict some sort of outcome, whether it be academic or otherwise,
Mhm.
right? And so, if you're just going in, my sense would be is if you're just going in to promote grit and looking at nothing else, then yeah, that's stupid.
Yeah.
Grit along with resources, and all those other things, like it's part of the equation,
Mhm. Mhm.
100%. And removing it or downplaying it, I think can have negative outcomes for kids or whoever else over the
Yeah.
long term.
It's almost like we don't trust our educators to have the ability to navigate nuance. So
And
we
that's
just
that's the best
say,
word for it. Yeah,
we're not even
nuance.
gonna let's just remove this word that could
Yeah.
in some world be misused. Let's remove it.
As opposed to addressing the times when it's misused
Right.
or you're using it too much and saying, all right, well, there's some parameters here, like there should be for anything.
Mhm.
It's a black and white, it's a yes or no. And
Yeah.
because we think it can cause harm, or because some people think that, man, we better stick away because we don't want to be accused of harming kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's wild.
I think that's it. I mean, I remember learning back in this is like undergrad psychology, right? Performance or achievement in some sort of outcome is the product of ability times drive,
Mhm.
which is
Mhm.
why academic achievement or getting good grades is not necessarily just people who have high IQs that get good grades. You can maybe have a more moderate IQ, but be
Yeah.
really driven and get as good and sometimes even better grades than people who may have a high IQ, but are moderately or not very driven.
Yeah. 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 I agree 100%.
And so that's why this concept about grit is, I think, throwing the baby out with the bathwater to some extent because it's like, well, no, you do want to promote that and support that because not everyone comes into fifth grade or freshman year with the same ability.
Mhm.
So what then do you do to help those who have different skill sets and ability levels?
Mhm.
You teach them how to know where they are and to know how to then overcome some of those obstacles that not everyone's going to have.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting.
Um, can I ask one more question?
Yes. What do you got?
Concept creep, is it ever a good thing?
That's a good question. I think the answer should be yes, but I'm struggling to come up with a reason why it's a good thing. I think it's a I think no, it's not I think it's never a good thing.
Okay.
What do you think?
The only thing that comes to mind for me is the fact that because this exists, you and I, and maybe others, are more likely to engage in conversations about what these terms are and what they aren't. So, in other words, it can at times increase the understanding and educate others as to what these terms are.
Yeah.
It makes them more
Yeah.
prevalent in a way that can allow for conversation or understanding.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess there's a world where someone that has real OCD feels like it's normalized and can seek support for it because they've heard it around so much.
Right. So there would be also be maybe less stigma
Yeah, less
related to
stigma.
it.
All right.
That's the only thing I can come up with that would be a positive side of this.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and that's good. There's not as funny. I think for the mental health diagnoses, that's where it could be positive. For the pop culture terms, there's
Right.
no way.
Right.
Gaslighting misused is never positive.
I don't think so.
Yeah, it just drives me crazy.
It drives me crazy as well.
Yeah. All right.
Well, Dave, that was a good conversation, man.
Yeah. Let us know in the comments what you thought. If there's other terms that we didn't come up with that where you see concept creep, let us know in the comments.
Yeah, I want
And
to know what really triggers people listening to this.
yeah, well, let us. Yeah, exactly. You can reach out to us at shrinkspaceshow@gmail.com and everywhere where you get social media, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all that.
And if you liked what you heard today, please subscribe so that you can continue liking the things that
Hmm.
we talk about.
Tell your friends. All right. Bye.
Later, everyone.